Hello, and welcome to Your Yes-Filled Life. I'm Brenda Winkle, and this podcast is for high-performing, empathic women who are ready to stop second-guessing themselves and start trusting what they know. Maybe you're successful in your career or business. People rely on you. You make difficult decisions every day, and yet sometimes the moment someone else's emotions, expectations, or opinions enter the conversation, your own clarity starts to disappear. If you've ever wondered, how can I be so confident everywhere else in my life but struggle to trust myself when it comes to my own needs, you are in the right place. Each week, we'll explore self-trust, nervous system regulation, emotional energy, boundaries, intuition, and the everyday moments where your life changes, not because you've become someone new, but because you learn to stay connected to yourself. I'll share client stories, my own experiences, practical tools, and honest conversations to help you stop abandoning yourself and start creating a life that's truly your own. Because I believe you already know more than you trust, and that is a yes-filled life. I'm so glad you're here. Let's begin. If you have been circling the same decision or the same topic, issue, problem, challenge, asking people what they think, looking for signs, getting readings about it, making pro-con lists, or telling yourself you just need a little more information before you know what to do, I'm going to give you 3 things to try before you collect one more piece of advice. And let me tell you, the third one I'm going to share with you might just be the most important, because sometimes the quote unquote, I need more information actually means I'm terrified to trust the information I already have. And also, it can be an active stress response. And I'll talk about which one when we get into it. And by the end of this episode, I'm going to ask you to choose one thing that you have been circling and try something very different with it. Let's get into it. I'm also creating a live experience for September called Yes to Me. Now, if you've been with me for a while, you know all about Yes to Me, but this is something different. I don't want to just talk about these concepts with you. I want to give you a place to practice it and experience. So we'll be live together September 15th from 6 to 8 p.m. Pacific. Make sure you mark your calendar, and I'll tell you exactly how to join me very soon. Now, let's dive into what is actually happening when you decide that there's something not quite right. And it might be that you're sitting with a friend and you're saying, I know I'm so sick of this, but you don't do anything to change it. And then you see her face. Or you tell your partner, and then your partner immediately goes into a fear response because what about the other plans that we had? Or the friend will say, but what about all the people you already committed to do this with? Or you start to worry, what will my kids think? Will they be okay? Or maybe for you, it's your work or your business. What will they think if I admit to them, I really prefer working on this type of project? And now you're reconsidering everything you already knew. You feel really good about an opportunity, and then your friend points out 3 things that could go terribly wrong. You were going to set the boundary, and then you imagine what might happen on the other side of setting that boundary, and you worry that it's going to cost you big time. Maybe it costs you a relationship or a job, or somebody might cancel you. Or you get an intuitive hit, something you know deep inside is true for you, and then you decide, I better ask for more signs, a signier sign, and then you book a reading, and then you talk to your friends, and all of them are telling you similar but slightly different things. And eventually, the thing that you say is, I just don't know. Except maybe you did know somewhere near the beginning. This is part of what it can be like to be an empath. Because an empath is not just processing information. As empaths, we don't just process words. We're processing facial expressions, emotions, tone, tension. We're calculating potential disappointment, the potential costs. We're also calculating the good things like excitement, expectation, energy in the room, and joy. And in all of that, you're also processing your own response to it all. That is a ton of data. No wonder a decision that initially felt simple suddenly feels so complicated, you really don't know. Now, before you ask anybody else, what do you think? Before you call your mom or talk to your sister or text your best friend or book another reading or search for another Reddit thread or a TikTok video, ask yourself, what do I think right now? How do I feel right now? And give yourself time and space to get those answers. Do not ask yourself what is objectively the correct decision. Do not ask yourself, what am I going to do for the rest of my life? Just ask yourself, before anyone else gets a vote, what do I notice? How do I feel? And my invitation for you is to like literally push pause as you're listening to this episode and jot it down in the notes app on your phone or on a sticky note. What do you know before everyone else gets a vote? This really matters because as empaths, as soon as we begin to receive other people's input, it gets really cloudy. And when you write down what you know, it makes it so much easier for you to come back and see, oh, yeah, I actually did know that. I knew this before anybody else entered the situation. You know so much more than you think. Now, I want to tell you a story. I'm not particularly proud of this, but I do think it's important for you to know that I have struggled with this too. I'm not ever sharing these podcast episodes or my coaching or readings from a place of moral high ground. I'm right in it with you. So I remember it was prior to 2001. Okay. I know it was prior to 2001 because it was before my daughter was born. And I remember I had just moved to Kansas City. Prior to Kansas City, I had lived in Fleming, Colorado. I was a K through 12 vocal, instrumental, speech, and drama music teacher in Fleming. I hated it. And then I moved to Sturgis, South Dakota, where I was the director of choral activities at Sturgis Brown High School. Loved it. But as we got to the end of our time there, my former husband was, he'd sort of run himself out of different jobs that he could apply to, and we needed to move. And so we found ourselves in Kansas City. And in Kansas City, I reconnected with a friend from high school. And I have a vivid memory of sitting in some type of a restaurant or a bar, but we were at the counter. And I remember telling this friend, I think it was the year 2000, that I thought I was burning out of teaching. Keep in mind, by that time, I had been teaching for 4 years. I told her I was exhausted by it, by the expectations, by the hours, by the workload, by the way we were treated. I was just exhausted. And my friend said, I don't remember. I mean, it was like the year 2000, right? So it's 26 years ago. But I remember my friend looking at me like, well, why don't you just quit? And I remember thinking, what do you mean? Why don't I just quit? I have a degree in this. I have decided to carry on my family's legacy. Both of my parents were music teachers. What do you mean? Why don't I just quit? What else would I do? I was infuriated. What do you mean quit? Just because I don't really think I can continue to do this, I should quit? It was mind blowing to me, the simplicity that she saw this. And by the way, she's not an empath. And so when I got ready to get curious around, all right, if I was going to actually leave teaching, what would I do? Oh man, the fear was paralyzing because I did have a degree. I was, I'd always wanted to be a music teacher. My parents were music teachers. It was kind of in my blood. What else would I do? I was married unhappily at the time, and the abuse that took place throughout my marriage had started early. And it had started with a lot of emotional, psychological, and verbal abuse. And that was absolutely present at this time. And I was being told actively that I was not capable of doing anything else. I wasn't smart enough. And I believed it. And so, even though I knew I was like burning out from the inside of teaching in 2000, or perhaps even earlier, I did not actually leave teaching until 2022. And by that time, I actually had a major health crisis and almost died in 2019 because I kept ignoring the feeling of, I can't sustain this. I cannot sustain this. And my body was like, yeah, neither can we. And I almost died the first week of school in 2019. But even then, it took me 3 more years to leave teaching. I knew back in 2000 that I needed a path out of teaching, but I could not see a path until 2022. And the reason was I had people in my ear telling me, you're such a good teacher. Well, now you've been in it so long enough. What else are you going to do? You wouldn't be good at anything else. Or you're so close to retirement, you can't possibly leave now. You got to just finish. You just got to retire. And I kept thinking, if I wait until I'm retired from teaching, I will actually be dead. I won't survive it because for me, it was so taxing. Wouldn't it have been interesting if I would have listened to that nudge before I started to collect feedback? What I actually wanted to happen all those 22 years that I was wobbling was for somebody to say, yeah, Brenda, this is really hard. Maybe it would be okay for you to look for something else. But nobody said that. Everyone was like, oh, but you're so good. Oh, but you're so close to retirement. Oh, but you're so respected. Oh, but you're on this committee. Oh, but you have this regional appointment. Oh, but and I let other people's experiences, words, and opinions matter more than mine, even though I've been in this work since 2015. Do you see how intensely wound up and tangled this can be? I was doing empowerment and healing work starting in 2015, and even that took me 7 years to actually make the change I wanted to make. So when I say I understand the wobble, I really do understand the wobble. What fascinates me looking back isn't whether my first instinct produced the perfect outcome, because obviously it didn't. It's how quickly I stopped treating my own perspective as valuable information. It's how much I didn't treat my experience as data once everyone else's opinions and thoughts and advice entered the conversation. So I want you to think back to something that you are currently circling, something that you've been wanting to do or wanting to stop doing or wanting to bring in. And before you ask anyone else about it today, invitation to write what I know right now is. And then finish that sentence without editing yourself, without needing certainty on what the next step is. Just allow yourself to know what you know right now. So that journal prompt again, that writing prompt is what I know right now is. And this is a big part of why I'm bringing Yes to Me back in September. I don't want you coming because you figured everything out. Bring the thing that you're wobbling around. Bring the thing that you don't know what to do with. We're going to create enough space for you to actually hear yourself. That doesn't mean you're going to take action that night. I mean, you might, but I just want you to hear what's true for you. So that's September 15th from 6 to 8 p.m. Pacific. Be sure and mark your calendar. More details are coming soon. So the next thing I'd love for you to consider is stopping using someone else's reaction as information about your decision. So sometimes you will say to somebody, I can't do that. And then maybe they look disappointed. And then you think to yourself, well, gosh, maybe I should do that. You tell someone I'm changing jobs and then they're worried and they're sad because the changing job is going to affect them. Well, now you're worried too. Or you share a business idea, something you're really excited about, something that you've had on your heart, and the people you're sharing it with are skeptical and they're like, oh, it's going to take a long time for you to be successful at that. And next thing you know, you're questioning whether or not it was a good idea. But here's the thing I want you to really hear: someone else's reaction is information about their experience. It could be valuable to consider, but it's not automatic evidence of what you should do. And that's a really important distinction. So, I want to talk to you about a client of mine. This client knew she wanted something until someone reacted. She knew she was making a decision to prevent other people from being disappointed. She knew the decision wasn't aligned for her, but she knew that if she made the decision, other people were going to have feelings about it, big feelings. And she had trouble setting a boundary because of the decades of experience behind her with a group of people in her family circle. And so it felt like so jarring that she was like, I can't possibly change it. It's like turning the Titanic. I can't do it. And what she wanted was to feel loved. She wanted to be respected and acknowledged for her contribution. She wanted to have credit for bringing in most of the household income. She wanted to be recognized for her commitment to being a really good mom. She wanted someone to notice that even though she was working full time and a very involved, active parent, she was also bearing the lion's share of the household. And she wanted not only her partner to recognize it, but she wanted her partner's family to recognize it. And they weren't, neither the partner or the family. And when we first started working together, a lot of what we were doing was nervous system work so that she could have the capacity to feel safe enough to say yes or no based on what she chose. And as her nervous system became more and more and more steady through the work that we were doing, and she began to say no to things, she began to see a different life for herself. And she started to see a life for herself that didn't include justifying why she should be respected or acknowledged. And because she was acknowledging and respecting herself, her standards increased exponentially. And when her standards increased exponentially, she realized that her partner and the partner's family were not meeting the standard. In fact, they were way below standard. There was no one in her life that was treating her as poorly as her partner and their family. And that was a huge aha moment for her, because when she got her nervous system really to a regulated state, and I want to be careful with that term so that I'm not saying her nervous system is always regulated now that she's worked with me. I'm not saying that. And anybody that tells you that is just a full on liar. When we say a nervous system that's regulated, that means that we can go between a stress response and then back into a regulated state with ease and resilience without getting stuck in a stress response. We can ebb and flow because you do need a certain amount of stress. So when I say regulated nervous system, I mean that you have the nervous system capacity to experience a stressful event and then return to baseline. That is a nervous system that is regulated. So once her nervous system became regulated, she realized these people aren't meeting my standards. She raised her standards and she decided that she deserved a life where she was being treated with kindness, dignity, respect, acknowledgement, gratitude for what she was providing. And she has created that. Now, I don't want to make this sound like simple, because making the choice is one thing, living through it can be crunchy, especially when we're repatterning different things. It can be super crunchy. It's not all going to be hearts and roses, whether we're talking about careers or relationships or health goals. But what's on the other side is absolutely worth it. And you'll know in your heart, whatever that choice is that you're kind of circling around, whatever that change that you want to make, there's a reason why you keep thinking about it. And I have a question for you. How many of your quote unquote decisions are actually attempts to figure out how to get what you want without anyone else having feelings about it? So, my question for this section of the episode, I invite you to reflect on this. Start a sentence this way. If I knew this person was going to be completely okay either way, what would I want? I'm going to repeat that because I want to make sure you get a chance to write it down. If I knew this person was going to be completely okay either way, what would I want? It doesn't mean the other people's feelings don't matter. It's not at all what I'm teaching. But we do need to temporarily remove their reaction so that you can identify what's true for you, especially as an empath. Because if you don't temporarily remove their reactions, their feelings, their energy around it, finding what is true for you feels incredibly difficult. So, the last section that we're going to move into, if you've been multitasking, this is an invitation to come on back because I want you to notice when, quote unquote, I need more information is actually, quote unquote, I want certainty. So I've known this for a long time, but I'm seeing it play out in a really elevated way because of the growth that's happening on TikTok. And so my account there has almost quadrupled in the last 3 weeks and continues to grow every day exponentially. So I am watching people ask me a question. They get the answer. Then they ask again. They get the same answer. Then they purchase a reading. They get the same answer with more information and more details. And then they'll come back to a free live and ask the same question again. Now, I'm telling you this not with any judgment, not 1 ounce of judgment, because this echoes back to what I was experiencing in 2000 when I knew I no longer had the capacity to be a teacher, but it took me 22 years to plot a course out of education. So this is, again, not coming from a place of judgment. It's coming from a place of recognition. If you keep asking the same question, what should I do? I don't know what to do. What should I do? But you get the answer. At a certain point, you just don't like the answer. You don't like what it is that you're going to have to do. You don't like that you're going to have the conversation or make the change or end the relationship or quit the job or start prioritizing your health or move your body more. You just don't like the answer. That's why you keep asking the question. So at some point, the problem is not that you don't have enough information. The problem is that no amount of information can guarantee that the decision you're about to make won't hurt, that it won't disappoint somebody, that it won't change your life, and it won't turn out differently than you hoped. Now, here's the thing. There's one more component of this that is really important to mention. When we think about the stress responses, let's back up a minute. So you have 4 basic stress responses: fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. They all have different ways that they manifest into our day, and you can roll through all 4 stress responses in a single day. It's not like you pick one and that's the one that you that you hitch your wagon to. It's not that. You can actually roll through all 4 in a day. The flight response, I have found, is the most sneaky in modern day life because the flight response dresses up as, I need more information. Let me do some more research. Let me get more certifications. Let me listen to some more podcasts and check out some more Reddit threads. Let me take some more courses. And there's no implementation. So if you're in this phase of continually consuming information and never implementing anything, it could be that you are in an activated chronic freeze state. And I think that's really important to name, which, by the way, is why we talk about nervous system regulation being so important because stress is real. I mean, they have done studies on the amount of stress that we experience in our adult lives in the 2020s. And it is exponentially higher than it's ever been in recorded history. In recorded history. So, of course, you're stressed. Of course, you can get into a stress response. That's why, in all of my one on one coaching, in my group Power Self Trust for Empaths, and in my membership, the Empowered Empath Collective, we do a ton of nervous system regulation work, breath work, tapping, somatic movement, somatic sound, all of the things. And I really want you to hear this. Self trust is not, I always know the right answer. It's more like I trust myself to respond to what happens when I choose after I've followed my heart. That is the power move. And I say that as a little double entendre. Power is the acronym for my group program, my flagship offer. Power stands for Presence, Optimize, Wisdom, Embodiment, Renewal. It's a 5-part framework. And the word power works in so many ways. Like, for example, that's power. The empath who thinks she needs certainty before acting is going to collect information forever. You'll never have enough information to actually take the action if that is going unchecked. I am not telling you that every first instinct you have is intuition or that you should never ask for advice. I am not telling you that. Sometimes you actually do need more information. Sometimes you do need to learn new skills. What I am asking you to do is to notice whether the information you're collecting is creating clarity or whether you're using information to postpone trusting yourself. Now, I want to bring it back to the thing that you've been circling, and I have 3 questions for you. Well, more than 3, but 3 to start. Number 1, what did I think before I asked everyone else? What did I think before I asked everyone else? Number 2, whose reaction am I trying to prevent or manage? And number 3, what information do I genuinely still need? And what am I collecting because I want certainty? And when you get those 3 answers, I do invite you to spend some time reflecting on them. I'll put them in the show notes so you can grab them. Then I want you to go to, what do I know today? And you're not going to know what you know forever. You're not going to know what I know to be true until the end of time. What do you know today? Not what is the correct decision, but what do I know today? And then from there, what is one honest next step? Maybe it's making the decision. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's leaving a conversation or setting a different boundary or asking one question, getting a quote, making an appointment, stopping the research for 48 hours to allow yourself to integrate, saying no, writing down what you actually want. That's movement. Let yourself take that next step. And it doesn't have to be a big step. Like if you put write a book on your list, no. That is like hundreds of steps. What is the next tiny action you can take? It's not write a book, start the podcast, start a business. No, it's decide on a domain name. It's what do I think I want to write about? Do I want to make an outline? If I was going to do a business, would it be service or product based? It's the next step. And that's really all you need. If you're listening to this with one very specific thing on your mind, the decision, relationship, boundary, opportunity, change, or desire you keep circling, I want you to come to Yes to Me. We're getting together live on September 15th from 6 to 8 p.m. Pacific. You don't need to arrive knowing your answer. You can come fully in your wobble. What I do want is for you to come willing to hear yourself, because there's a difference between being uncertain and being unwilling to know. And we're going to create space for you to figure out exactly where you are. Doesn't mean you're going to take the next step the next day, but let's just get honest with knowing where you are right now. And if you experience that night and you realize, I don't want to be only able to access this version of me when Brenda's guiding me through it, that's exactly why Power Self Trust for Empaths exists. Power is not about me teaching you the right decisions. It's about teaching you the framework of self trust to be able to live your life as an empath without constantly needing someone outside you to tell you what you already know, what you're allowed to want, how you feel, and what to do next. Enrollment for Power opens in September, and we begin September 29th. Now, before you ask one more person what they think today, give yourself the courtesy of asking yourself first. What do I know right now? Start there. Thank you so much for listening. It means so much to me. I just can't even express how grateful I am that you're listening. Next up, in the very next episode, we have the Judith Orloff podcast episode. The godmother of the empath movement is coming in to talk to us about being an empath. I cannot wait to share that with you. Be sure you're subscribed to the podcast wherever you're listening. And if you could please leave the podcast your rating, review, or comment wherever you're listening, it is so incredibly helpful to the podcast. And it also activates that reciprocal energy because the podcast is completely free. It is not free to produce. And when you share and give the podcast ratings and reviews, it's a beautiful energy exchange. Speaking of which, if this meant something to you, please share it with someone you care about. Thank you so much for being here. Bye for now. Until next time.